You share walls with people you've never met. That's the deal you make with a building. There's a person on the other side of your bedroom wall, close enough that if the concrete wasn't there, you could touch them, and you have never once seen their face. And you don't think about it, because thinking about it doesn't help. Welcome back to Vespertine. 3 stories tonight from people who lived in a building with somebody else. Here we go. The building didn't have a 13th floor. It went 12, then 14, like they all do. And at midnight, the lift stopped at 13 and the doors opened, and I stood there looking down a corridor that did not exist. I lived on the 19th floor of a tower block for 4 years. Big, anonymous building, about 200 flats, the kind where you nod at people in the lift and never learn a name. And the lift buttons went 1 to 12, then 14, which everybody knows about. It's superstition. It's an old developer thing. Half the towers in the country do it. I'd pressed 19 probably 4,000 times and never once thought about it. I came in at about 12:30 on a Tuesday. Nothing special. I'd been at my sister's. Empty lobby, empty lift, and I pressed 19 and I got my phone out. And the lift stopped early. I felt it slow down and I looked up, and the little display above the door said 13. And I want to be really precise about my own reaction, because it wasn't fear. It was the specific annoyance of somebody who's tired and just wants to get home, and now the lift's broken. That's genuinely it. I thought, brilliant, this thing's going to be out of service for a week. And then I thought, there is no 13. And I looked at the buttons, 1 to 12, then 14, exactly where they'd always been. And I looked at the display, and it said 13, and the doors opened. And there was a corridor. Now, here's the thing that has kept me up for 11 years. It was my corridor. It was the 19th floor. Same carpet, same lights, same fire door at the end with a little wired window. I could see the door to my own flat from where I was standing, 19G. I could see the wreath my neighbor left up all year. Except it was the 13th floor. And there was somebody standing at the far end of it, at the fire door, facing me. Not moving, just standing at the end of my corridor, in a corridor that wasn't mine, 20 feet from a door with my number on it. And I hit the close button. I hit it about 40 times, which does nothing. Everyone knows the close button does nothing. And I hit it anyway, because that is what a human being does. And while I was hitting it, the person at the end started walking. Not running, walking, at a completely normal pace, the way you walk toward a lift you're hoping to catch. Arms swinging, perfectly ordinary. And the doors were taking their time the way lift doors do, and I could see them getting closer, and I still couldn't see a face. The light in that corridor comes from above, and everybody's face is a bit of shadow. That's how it always is. That's how it is on my actual floor. The doors shut when they were about 10 feet away, and the lift went up. And it stopped at 19. And the doors opened onto my corridor. Same carpet, same lights, same wreath, and it was completely empty. I ran to my door. I got in and I put the chain on, and I sat with my back to it, and I did not sleep. And nobody knocked. Nothing happened. That's the whole night. Nothing happened, and I sat on the floor until it got light. I called the police in the morning, and I could hear how it sounded coming out of my mouth. They sent someone. He was very kind, and he took a report about a possible intruder, because that's the only box that exists for this. But I did get one thing. The management company had the plans on the wall in the office downstairs, one of those fire evacuation diagrams, floor by floor, and I went and I looked at it very carefully. 12, 14, every floor drawn out, every flat numbered. And between 12 and 14, there was a gap in the drawing. Not a floor, a gap. About the height of a floor, hatched gray, with no label at all. Every other space on that diagram had a label. Plant room, riser, tank. That one had nothing. I asked the woman at the desk what it was, and she said, "That's just structure." And I asked, "What structure?" And she said she didn't know, and she was already looking at her computer. I moved out 4 months later. And in those 4 months, I took the stairs every single time. 19 floors, twice a day, with a bad knee. And the thing I want to leave you with isn't the corridor. It's this. About a year after I left, I bumped into a woman who'd lived on 22. And we did the small talk, and she asked if I'd got out because of the lifts. Because of the lifts. That's what she said. Not, did you have a problem with the lift? Because of the lifts. Like it was a thing everybody left because of. And I said yes. And she nodded, and she said, "Yeah, I never pressed anything after midnight." And that was it. That was the whole conversation. Two women in a supermarket agreeing about something neither of us would ever say out loud. That building's still there. 200 flats. Somebody's in that lift right now. The flat next door had been empty for 8 months. And when the manager finally opened it up, the furniture inside was arranged exactly like mine. The sofa where my sofa was, the bed where my bed was. And there was a hole in the wall we shared. I rented a 1-bed in a converted building, 4 flats to a floor. I was 4A. Next door was 4B, and 4B was empty. The manager told me that when I moved in. He said it in a sales way, like it was a perk. "Nice and quiet for you." The first sound was about a month in. It was a knock. Not on my door, in the wall. The bedroom wall, the one 4B was on the other side of. One knock at about 11 at night. And an old building makes noise. Pipes knock. That's the whole reason I didn't do anything about it for 6 weeks. And I want anybody listening who's currently ignoring a noise to hear how normal that was. What changed it was that it started matching me. I'd get up in the night for a glass of water, and I'd hear something move in the wall as I moved. Not before, with. I'd stop, and it'd stop. I'd walk back, and there'd be a soft drag along the wall keeping pace with me at exactly my height. And I did the thing you do, which is I tested it. I stood in my bedroom at 1 in the morning, and I knocked on the wall twice, and it knocked back twice. I did 3. It did 3. And then I did nothing at all for about a minute, and I could hear breathing in that wall. Not through it. The wall's brick. You can't hear breathing through brick. It sounded like it was in it. I went to the manager the next day, and I was very reasonable, and I said, "I think somebody's living in 4B. And he said, "That's not possible. It's locked. I've got the only key." And I said, "Then come and open it, and let's both look, and then I'll stop bothering you." And to his credit, genuine credit, he could have fobbed me off. He came up that afternoon with the key. The flat was furnished, which it should not have been. It had been empty and unfurnished for 8 months. He said so on the way up. He had the file in his hand. And the furniture was arranged like mine. Sofa against the same wall, bed in the same corner, a little table where my little table was, mirror by the door where mine is. It was my flat. It was my flat reflected, because the layouts are mirrored, and everything was in the mirror image spot of where I keep mine. And it wasn't nice furniture. It wasn't a show flat. It was junk. Different chairs, a broken thing, a bed with no sheets. Somebody had dragged whatever they could find into that flat and put it exactly where mine was. And the manager just kept saying, "No, no, no," quietly, over and over, like a man watching his own weekend. The hole was behind where their sofa was, about chest height on somebody sitting down. punched through the plaster and worn round the edges, the way a thing gets when it's been used. I went back to my flat and I looked at my wall, and my sofa is against that wall. And behind my sofa, low down, there was a hole in my plaster that I had never seen in 14 months of living there, because I have never once pulled my sofa out from the wall. Why would you? I have thought a lot about what you could see through that hole, and the honest answer is my sofa from behind, me watching telly, the back of my head. The police came. They took the hole seriously, which I appreciated. They dusted, they took the furniture arrangement photos, they were properly bothered by it. But there was nobody to find. The flat was empty, the lock hadn't been forced, and the manager had the only key and was so obviously horrified that even the police stopped looking at him after 10 minutes. Nothing came of it. That's how these end. There was no arrest, there was no name, there was nothing on the doors, and I got a form with a crime number on it that I could give my insurance. I moved out in a week, and here's the bit I've never been able to shake. In that flat, in 4B, arranged like mine, there was one thing that wasn't in my flat. There was a second chair, pulled up next to the sofa, facing the hole. 2 chairs. And I don't know if that means there were 2 of them, or if it means one of them was expecting company. Somebody rents 4A now, and 4B, I checked, is listed as available, furnished. I went down 11 floors to reach the ground floor of a 9-floor building. And when I turned around and ran up, I kept going down. And my phone says I was in that stairwell for 2 hours and 40 minutes. The power went out at about 10 at night. Whole block, all 9 floors. And that's not scary, that's just a Tuesday. It happened maybe twice a year in that building. So I sat in the dark for a bit, and then I got bored, and I decided to go down to the lobby and see if anyone knew anything. Which is what everybody does. That's the whole event. Everyone comes down and stands in the lobby and complains, and then the power comes back and everyone goes up. I lived on 7. I got my phone torch out and I went into the stairwell. And it was fine. It was completely fine. Concrete stairs, that green paint, the numbers stenciled on the wall at every landing. 6, 5, 4. The footsteps started at about 4. Below me. Somebody else coming down, 1 flight ahead. And that's not scary either. The whole building was going down to the lobby. I actually said, "All right," out loud, expecting a neighbor to say it back. Nobody said it back. And I got to the landing they should have been on, and there was nobody there. But the footsteps kept going, 1 flight below me, steady. And I did the thing that ruined it. I stopped. And they stopped. And I want to describe this properly. It wasn't that they stopped at the same time. They stopped a half beat after me, like an echo, like something that was listening to my feet and doing what my feet did and got caught out when my feet quit. So I stood there on the 3rd floor landing in the dark, and I didn't experiment, because I'm an idiot. I took 2 steps. 2 steps came back, and then I went down fast, because down was out, and the stencils went 3, 2, 1, ground. And then the next landing said ground. I want to say that again, because when I tell people this in person, I always have to say it twice. I passed the ground floor. And the stairs kept going down, and the next landing said ground as well. Same stencil, same paint, same fire door. I went through 6 landings that all said ground. And that's when I finally turned around and ran up, and I'm not proud of how I sounded doing it. And I ran up 11 flights and the numbers kept going down. 3, 2, 1, ground. I was running up, and the wall was telling me I was descending, and my legs were telling me I was climbing. And both of those things were happening at once, and I could not make them be the same thing. I stopped trying at some point, and I just pulled at fire doors. Every door on every landing. All locked, which is illegal, by the way. Fire doors aren't allowed to be locked from the stairwell. I checked afterwards. They weren't locked when the electricians looked at them the next day either. And on about the fourth door I pulled at, my torch went across the flight below me, and there was a man standing on it, looking up, hands at his sides, right at the edge of the beam so I could see the shape of him and nothing else, and he did not move at all. And everything else in that stairwell had been matching me for 20 minutes, so a thing standing perfectly still was somehow the worst part. And then the power came back on. All at once, the whole stairwell, those horrible strip lights. And it was a stairwell. 9 floors. I was on the second. There was nobody below me. The stencils said what they should say. The door I had my hand on opened when I pushed it. And I walked out into my own lobby, where about 15 of my neighbors were standing around complaining about the power, exactly like I'd expected 2 hours and 40 minutes earlier. Because that's what my phone said. I went in the stairwell at 4 minutes past 10. I came out at 12:46, and I'd gone down 5 floors.
The neighbors hadn't missed me. Nobody notices a bloke isn't at the power cut party.
And I stood there with my hands shaking, and somebody offered me a beer, and I took it. And I did not say a single word about it to any of them. And I've never said a word about it to anyone in that building. I moved out, obviously, and people always ask me the same question, and it's the wrong question. They ask, what would have happened if I'd kept going down? That's not what I think about. What I think about is the matching. It copied me for 20 minutes, every step, every stop. It was learning how I walk. And then when I finally saw it, it was the only thing in that building holding still. I don't think it was following me down. I think it was practicing. That block's still there, 9 floors. The power still goes out. That's 3. And here's the thing about buildings. You can leave a wood. You can get off a bus. But you signed a year on a building, and your stuff's in it, and the stairs are the only way out. If you've got one of these, put it in the comments. I read all of them. Sleep well, if you can.